Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome students to the online lecture number 15. Today we are going to talk about a brand new topic, that is two-dimensional arrays. So we are going to discuss what are two-dimensional arrays, how to declare them, how to assign them different values, and what operation can we apply on two-dimensional arrays. Remember that in practical programming, arrays, especially two-dimensional arrays, are widely used. So it is very important that you have sound foundation of what is array and how to use array in order to solve problems that you face in real life. So with that, let me go to the objectives of today's lecture. So today we are going to discuss what are two-dimensional arrays, a two-dimensional arrays multiplication, two-dimensional arrays operation, using two-dimensional arrays in loops. So uh, this lecture will be practical in nature because we have talked a lot about the theoretical part. We have now a strong theoretical foundation, and now it is time to do some practical work. And it is only that you do practically run your program, compile them, and then you will have a better understanding of what programming are and how to use programming to solve various problems. So with that, let me turn on the code blocks editor. So let me turn it on. So you can use any IDE for developing C++ program. You can use dev C++. You can use online IDEs. So there are many IDEs compiler available for C++. So if you are not comfortable with one software or with one compiler or with one integrated development environment, then you can switch to anyone that you can like. You can use Visual Studio, you can use NetBeans, you can use CodeBlocks, or you can use dev C++. There are various online IDEs for C++ program development and for developing programs for other languages, such as for like Java language, for Python, for C Sharp. So there is a lot of flexibility, there is a lot of choices that you can use. So here first I'm going to let me also turn on the magnifier, because I know that visibility is an issue. So let me zoom in. So first I'll go to file and then select new. You already know about this process, and I'm going to click on the project, select console application and click go. Make sure that you have selected C++ option, because we are developing programs for C++. And here I'm going to write two dimensional arrays operation. So with that, let me click OK, and then I'll click finish. So this auto generated code has been generated for you, and now you can customize it. You can use your own program. So first of all, I'm going to declare three two-dimensional arrays. So the data type will be integer, and then you can I think I should zoom out now. Okay, so I think that's okay. So the first one is A, having 10 rows and 10 columns. Now the second one is B, having 10 rows and 10 columns. And the third one is AB, having 10 rows and 10 columns. So what is the objective of this program? Like we are going to multiply the elements stored in array A and B, and we are going to save them in AB array. So this program is about two dimensional array multiplication. So I'm going to write down commit here, two dimensional arrays multiplication. All right, so far we have like declared these three arrays A, B and AB, and their dimension are 10 by 10, 10 by 10 and 10 by 10. But so far garbage value is stored in these arrays, so you cannot use the value stored in these arrays because they are dummy data, they are garbage value. So first we have to initialize them. Particularly we have to initialize the array A and the array B. So for this uh, I'm going to prompt the user, and I'm going to, let's say, tell him enter rows and columns for the first array or matrix, and then you can enter array handle. So I have few typos. Rows for the first matrix. So here I am also going to declare a variable r1 representing the number of rows of the first matrix or array, and the c1 which represent the number of columns of the first array or matrix, and then we have r2 c2 representing rows and columns of second array, and then we will be using some variables I, j and k, and I'm going to explain them later to you people. So with that, let us go to the next line, and here I'm going to allow user to enter the rows for the number of rows for the first matrix. So I'll prompt user to enter the number of rows, and that number of rows will be stored in r1 variable. And then for the columns you write c in c1, and then we are going to write enter rows and columns for the second matrix handle. And here we are going to write c in r2, and you can directly write here c2. So you can directly write the values here. So then what should like we do? So if columns of first matrix is not equal to rows of the second matrix, then obviously we cannot do the matrix multiplication operation. So we have to somehow restrict user not to enter any values where the columns of the first matrix is not equal to the rows of the second matrix. So ask the user to enter the size of matrix again. So we are going to compel the user to enter the correct size of the matrix. So when the columns in first matrix is equal to the rows in second matrix, then we can do the multiplication operation. And then otherwise we are going to prompt the user again and again that enter the correct values. So with that, let me go ahead and I'm going to use the while loop while c1 is not equal to r2. It means the first matrix column is not equal to the second matrix rows, then what should we do? We should give a message to the user that there is error. And what is that message? Columns of the first matrix is not equal to rows of the second matrix. Okay, let me use these double quotes and let me say handle not equal to. So with that, once again, I'll be prompting the user cout enter rows and columns for the second matrix. So this is the message for user to enter again the number of rows and columns for second matrix. So let me correct these spelling errors and let us move on. Okay, I'm also going to ask the user cout enter rows and columns for the first matrix as well, and then user can here enter R1, and on the same line you can write C1, and then enter rows and columns for the second matrix R2, C2. Okay, so this loop will continue as long as C1 is not equal to R2. When they are equal, so the loop will break. We are going to jump out of the loop and we are going to come over here. So let me get some space. And after that, once the columns of the first matrix is equal to the rows of the second matrix, then we can do the multiplication operation. So then we can straight away say that first we have to store some data in the matrix A. So storing data in the matrix A. I'm going to make sure that I'm on the next line, and I'm going to give the user a message to enter the elements of matrix A, and then I'm going to use the for loop because there are a lot of entries, so for loop is going to help us. So for I assign it to 0, I is less than R1, I plus plus. With that, I'm going to use another for loop, j equals 0, j is less than C1, j plus plus. Okay, so we have an outer loop, an inner for loop, and then I'm going to ask user cout enter element to A, and then what will be that element? So I'm going to I cannot say to the user to enter the element at position 0 because the user does not know that the array start at position 0, so they are Now, if people in the real world, they know that everything like start with the number one. So here I can display that message I plus one. So I zero plus one makes one. And similarly, j plus one. So if this is uh, row number one and column number one, or in arrays or in C++ terminology, we can say this is uh, row number 0 and column number 0. And then I can say Cin a of I and j. Okay, so with that we will be able to store data inside the matrix or array A. But remember, we also have another array, and that is array number 2 or matrix B. So I'm going to give here message. So these comments are really helpful when, I mean, later on you are reading your own program matrix B. So similarly I can write cout. I can ask user to enter the elements of matrix B. And then for, once again I'm going to initialize I with 0. I is less than, now we have the second matrix, so I is less than R2, which represent the rows of the second matrix, I plus plus, and then the body of for loop, the nested for loop. I mean, it is similar to what we have done above for the matrix A. And then initialize j with 0 once again. Remember, I and j now are acting like global variable, but once again we are reinitializing them to 0 0. So we will be successfully able to enter data into matrix B and matrix A. So j plus plus. Okay, everything looks fine. Cout, enter elements of B. So here you can write once again I plus 1 to show the user, like these messages are for the user. J plus 1. Then for the readability I'm going to use colon and Cn B of I and J. Okay, so we have successfully entered data into matrix A and in matrix B. I'm going to make some space over here, and let me very quickly check the time. Okay, so we still have a lot of time. Let me zoom in again, and here I'm going to first make sure that we are initializing the elements of matrix AB to 0. So we have to first make sure, because AB now at this moment AB contain the garbage data, so which has to be cleaned up or removed. So once again I'm going to use for loop. Remember that these loops are used to enter data into the arrays or matrices, and these loops are also used to like display data from those matrices. So we have an outer for loop, and then for the column we have inner for loop j equals 0, j is less than c2 and j plus plus. Okay, so J is 0, I is less than R1, R1 represent the row, and then we have I plus plus, and then for J is like less than C2. Everything is looking fine. And after that, I'm going to initialize them to 0. Then once again, these three dashes will highlight your comment, so that is why I'm using it. And then at last we are going to say that multiplying matrix A and B and storing the result in array AB. So how do we multiply matrices? So once again, the columns in the first matrix should be equal to the rows in the second matrix. So this is the rule, and there are many other matrix rule, but you can like go and search it on the Google or ask it from your mathematics teacher. But for now, in our case, the columns in the first matrix or array should be equal to the rows in the second matrix or array. So with that, I'm going to go to the main part, which is array multiplication. Let me have some space. Okay, so once again I'm going to use for loop. Initialize I with 0, I is less than R1, I plus plus, and then you can write, let me remove it, the body of for loop, and then inside the body of for loop I'm going to once again use inner loop for the columns. J is less than C2 and J plus plus. So why I'm using R1 over here? So R1 represent the rows of the first array, whereas the C2 represent the column of the second array. Okay, then um, let us move on. Okay, I have collapsed it. Let me once again go to my main program. Okay, over here I'm going to make the body of the inner for loop, and then inside this inner for loop we are going to use another for loop. So the string can go to any level. So here let me initialize k to 0. We have already declared k at the top. K is less than c1 k plus plus. So here I do not have to use these curly braces, so let me remove them. And then of course the body of the inner loop, and then over here I'm going to say A B matrix, go to position number 0 of 0 because I contains 0 and J also contains 0, and then I'll say AB. So in whatever is inside AB of I and AB of J, add it to whatever we get from A of I K. So K at the moment contains 0, I contains 0, and we are going to multiply them with B of K and J. So what does this operation tells us? So here we have value 0 0 for AB, and then we have A of IK which is like I is 0, k is 0. So we are multiplying whatever is inside a of 0 0 with b of 0 and 0. So at this moment the first element of the array A will be multiplied with the first element of the array B, and the result will be added to A of ij, and then it will be stored back to this AB array. But when we move on, like when we go up to the nested for loop, so the value of k will be incremented. So still k still will be less than c1. So we are going to jump again to this part where once again whatever is stored inside I of j, we are going to add some other numbers, and that numbers are, we are going to say a, this represent the first row and then the second column, and then this represent, we are here k is 1, so this represent the second row and the first column. So we are going to multiply them, and then we are going to add them to a of I and j, and this operation will be performed, and once this condition is false we break and we will go to this outer for loop, this one, and we are going to increment the value of j, and then once again we are going to enter into this inner loop, and once again this operation will be repeated. So as long as j is less than c2, we are going to execute the body of this loop, and then if this condition is false we are going to jump out of this for loop, and we are going to then increment the value of I, and then the test this condition. So there will be a lot of iteration, and there will be like a lot of operation, but ultimately array A will be multiplied with the array B, and result will be stored in a I of j. So in order to make sure that we have successfully multiplied both of these array, so I'm going to displaying the multiplication result of two matrix. So how do we do it? Yes, we are going to once again use the for loop for uh, I initialize to 0, I is less than r1, I plus plus, and then we can like use another inner loop, initialize j with 0, j is less than c2, and j plus plus. So with that, let me put the body of this in nested for loop, and here I can just simply write cout, make some space, eb of I and j. After that, after every row is displayed, when we go to the next row, I make sure that I'm on the next line, and L, and here I can also write cout output matrix, and okay, with that, let me minimize this window. First of all, I'll make sure there is no compile time error. So what is that? It says we expect B was not declared in the scope. So what is happening here? Okay, so we declare R1 and B is like B of 10, 10, A B of 10, A of 10. Okay, for simplicity, I'm going to put semicolon here. I'm going to write int A of B. So let me compile it once again. So it says that mm, okay, we have extra bracket over here, and I think that was causing the problem. I'll compile. Okay, so we have no error. So let me run it. So 5 rows and 5 columns. 5 rows and 5 columns. Let me enter data. 5, 4, 4, 3, 3, 4, 2, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 4, 6, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. So we have to like be patient over here because we have a lot of values. So let me, I'm going to enter this dummy data. Let me enter 4, 3, 4, 6, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 7. And there we have it. We have this multiplication operation. So you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, 5 rows, and this is our data. So that is how we multiply these two arrays. Remember that you have to practice a lot in order to get these results, or in order to understand how to work with two-dimensional arrays, how to work with variables, how to use loop, how to use nested loop, how to initialize two-dimensional arrays using loop, how to get data from the two-dimensional array using loops, how to use a nested loop and further perform more and more nesting. So you know that nesting can go infinite as long as you have the processor power or the memory power. So with that, I'm going to stop over here, and if you have some problem you can post it on the Google group. I'll see you in the next lecture.